We're over here building a couple of TC frames, and I've got a frame here built up that I've partially glued together. And we want to glue together the front cage here. And we're working on Dennis's frame, so we're starting with the bottom plate, the top plate, and the two side plates. What we're going to do next is we're going to flush trim out the center ring. And so I'm doing that on the router over here.
What do you think, Des? We're getting your frame done today.
Well, I hope so. See how much we can get done of it. We're going to get a good start on it.
Okay, let's go over here.
Alrighty. Might want to go around over on this side.
Yeah, I'm going to come around this side.
The sun from glaring on you so you can see.
Move a little around here, people. Don't get...
Yeah. Well, what we did was we have a half-inch piece of plywood here that I had rough cut with my jigsaw on the inside kerf and the outside kerf. And so we end up with a piece that looks like this, basically just kind of rough cut. And I have a master ring that I made, and I basically laid it down and just drew the lines where the lines are supposed to be. And I used double stick tape to tape it down so the two layers are stuck together. And I've got my router bit in here. This is a spiral cutter, which cuts really smooth. And you can get straight cut bits, which will do the same thing, but it tends to cause a little more vibration, and it takes out bigger chunks.
You can show them what the blade, what you're talking about on the blade.
This is the spiral blade here. Actually cuts much cleaner, and it only cuts a little at a time because there's only a small portion of the blade touching the wood at once. So this cuts smoother and cleaner, whereas the flat blade here, which I picked up at Menards, is basically just a flat bit. These are like 20, whereas the spiral bit is about like 80. So I'm going to go ahead and flush trim the inside here now.
Okay.
You always want to wear a dust mask when you do this because pieces of wood go flying everywhere.
Let's see, that does a nice job.
Yeah, and you always want to go back and double check and make sure you get it nice and flush, that you didn't miss any spots. Sometimes there'll be a little piece that's sticking out and you got to go back and hit it again. And after you've checked it, you can pry this apart, probably. Use my X-Acto knife here, or my utility knife I should say. You can use that to kind of pry these.
That's the double back tape that's holding it.
There's the double stick tape still on the master that I had stuck my template to. Or I should say my workpiece. Now my workpiece is completely done, but now I got to go back through and put my slots in where my other pieces are going to connect. That would be step 2. And it'll end up looking like this. So first we want to get it basically to the shape, and then we're going to go put slots in it.
Great.
So now we're going to work on that now. Another tip, in between, if you're making multiple copies, in between you can only use this double stick tape once, maybe twice. And the easiest way to get it off is to use another piece of tape to peel off the next piece. Otherwise you're sitting there picking at it all day long trying to get it to come off. And I found the easiest way to get it off is to use tape to take itself off. You get the corner and just kind of rip it like that, that you're peeling one corner and it just comes right off. So now
Excellent.
Now we got a clean surface to work with. We can go put more tape back on it to flush trim another piece.
Great.
So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut up some more pieces. I usually take my tape and I'll put it out on a piece of plywood, and then I'll cut it in 1-inch strips. This stuff is like about $4 to $5 a roll, and you'll burn through it pretty quick when you're flush trimming stuff like I do. And you don't need to cover the entire surface to get your parts to stick. You only need to use pieces strategically placed so it'll grip. And here is our master that I'm going to use to put slots on the piece we just made. There we go. Okay.
And for people that know what you're doing, you got a frame right here. You show what that part's actually going to be on the frame.
This ring here is basically this ring going around the bottom here. It's like this. They call it the center ring.
Okay. And this frame right here is partially glued, right?
Yeah, I've got this part. This section here is all glued up.
And that's how you glue it. You glue a section at a time.
Yeah,
you said,
do a section at a time. You leave the bottom and top off. You just glue up this front cage, and the next stage would be to glue this onto the bottom piece, and then glue in your side plates.
Gotcha.
And then these side pieces here. And then what you want to do is you want to glue the top on and probably the back 2 pieces. You want to do it in 3 stages. You want to make sure that glue is dry between each one, because you want all this stuff to line up nice and smooth. So when you put your skins on, it's going to fit. If you have pieces that are sticking out or not even level, your skins are not going to mount properly, and you've just basically wasted a frame.
And by the way, your robot's looking good.
Thank you. Yeah, this is mine over here. He's coming together slowly, but basically the frame we're working on here, I slightly modified from Mike Senna's design to include a back door, basically, which I have magnets mounted in there, and it just pops right in, just like that.
Very nice.
So let me go ahead and use my knife here to peel off our tape. Alright, we got our little strips of tape taped on here, and what I usually do to make sure that they're good and sealed down to the wood, I take my utility knife and kind of like scrape in one direction to adhere it, make sure it's stuck good in the corner here. Like that, so that when you go back and actually pick the backing off of it, it peels right off. Otherwise you're picking at it. Alright, I got all the little backers all peeled off, and now we take our piece that we just flush trimmed. Alright, I got my next template here double stick taped to the piece that we're working on. And what we're using here is a smaller bit so it'll get into the slot. I think this is a 3/8. And what we want to do is we want to do what they call climb routing. We want to actually climb route on this side here, because your blade is actually going in this direction. And climb routing actually acts as though it's actually climbing the wood. Normally you want to try to get it to go the other direction so that it doesn't grab the piece of wood out of your hands. What we want to do is climb route. So to keep it from chipping this piece out, if we actually went and did a regular route from starting over here, coming this way, it would blow all this wood out and you'd have big chunks missing. So we're going to do what they call climb routing, the first little bit, and then we'll come back through and clean it out, and you'll see how nice it looks doing it that way. So it's actually a 2-step process. down here you can see how clean some of these came out. A couple of them still chipped out, and you can see this one here kind of broke away, and that's probably because the wood was a little brittle there. But you would get this almost every time if you did a standard cut with your router blade, coming in over here and just cutting around and following the outside. So doing that little climb cut first keeps a bunch of your wood from just chipping away and breaking loose.
And basically, a climb, what you're talking is going halfway in first, then
yeah,
going
you
in.
basically, well, as I said before, the router bit is going in this direction, so if you just basically butted this up against the router bit would naturally want to climb up the wood. But you don't want it to do that, because what happens is it starts to pull the wood faster and faster, and it grabs it out of your hands.
So we just did that in 2 steps instead
Yeah, so
of
basically what you want to do is you want to make sure you got a good grip on it, give it a slight climb cut for the first little bit, and then stop it and pull it back out before it starts to grab the piece of wood. And then go back through and go the other direction. So you want to basically rotate if the router bit is going in a clockwise direction, you want to rotate your piece of wood in a clockwise direction so that when it comes in contact, it's going in the opposite direction the cutter is going.
Gotcha.
That's a normal cut. But climb routing would be going the other direction. So between the two, it comes out pretty nice.
Looks excellent.
Yeah.
Great.
So here's our center ring.
Okay.
Thanks for that tip.